A stage in this metaphysical system, which we are constructing this evening, the word yachatz actually means splitting or breaking. Now, as we discussed previously, when the sages designated this fourth key in the keyboard as yachatz, then we understand that there is a very significant meaning and interpretation and understanding of what this stage is all about. When we said that we were going to break the matzah into two pieces, the smaller part would be symbolic of the dalet, and the larger part would be the vav, which we were going to save for the afikomen, the last stage, I should say the stage just before the last stage, and this would be represented by the vav. So therefore it is essential that we read out loud before embarking on the prayers and actions involved. We must pronounce these words, and it should be firmly both in our minds and the minds of those taking part in the Seder with us, so that each and every single person knows the function and purpose of every part of this structure. As we said before, we took the middle matzah, which was the power of our meditation, which through the power of our meditation, when we placed those three matzahs beneath the Seder plate, we then structured the attributes of Levi, the left column, into this middle matzah. Now, just as we saw in the cases of the wine and the karpas, our first act is to temper the power of the left column. This is what the Seder is all about. This is what Pesach is all about. This is what the burning of the Paschal Lamb is all about. The way we can attach and tap that awesome power that flowed on this particular evening is to demonstrate with a system one thought in mind, and that is, how are we going to constrict the power of the left column? And so what we did with the wine, I might have not mentioned this, but from a Kabbalistic point of view, before we pour the wine from the bottle, we add a little water being designated as hesed, the power of the right, and thus, when we added the water to the wine, we sweeten the wine. We temper the wine. We're tempering the power of the left column, as we discussed when we spoke of the Kiddush. The Kiddush makes use of wine. Wine being that vessel, that physical reality that encompasses and embodies the greatest intensity of the force in our universe. And so, before we had made Kiddush, we added wine to temper the power of the left column. So it was when we dipped the karpas into the salt water. Again, to temper the hod, the left column. And now we break the middle matzah into two parts. And incidentally, it should be noted that this is the only one of the three matzahs that is broken in this way. Now, the word yachatz means breaking. And in fact, it is derived from the word hetz, a spear, which will remind us that we pierce the het or hametz as if it were a spear in order to obtain matzah. I did not go through this because it is mentioned in Kabbalah Connection. That is, hametz and matzah are both contain three letters. The difference being hametz is het meaning the three sides are all connected, whereas the hay has three sides, which the one leg is severed from the other two sides. When we sever the het of the hametz, in effect, we have an action of matzah. This is the purpose of the spear, the hets. Okay? So, what we are doing in this stage of Yahatz is also breaking the middle matzah. And here again, we're already in possession of the information to provide us the answer as to why the importance of breaking the matzah. This is a key. It is not merely a perfunctory step in the development of the Haggadah, but it seems to be a vital point. And of course, Yahat's coming from the word splitting, breaking. Since we said that Levi, the middle matzah, was left column, we want to break that physical matzah, and so it is like we drive a spear or a wedge into the metaphysical power of the left column. The resulting two parts is the daled, the smaller part, which we now designate, and again, always bear in mind that when we discuss designation, we are discussing the activation of mind over matter, and this small piece will now be considered the lechem oni, poor man's bread, and the other part, the larger part, will be the afikomen. Both will contain the energy of the left column, but in the proportions that we can now handle without risking any damage to our delicately balanced and cleansed metaphysical systems. Afikomen that we shall use later reminds us of the sacrificial lamb, which we had already discussed, and it contains the aspect of the left column. And since we do not have the lamb, the afikomen represents that same metaphysical force. And we shall discuss the afikomen shortly, because now, in this left column aspect, we have also injected the aspect of the vav, central column. And of course, when we come to the part where we will recite the prayer directed to the lechem oni, it also reminds us that on this night, at the time of the Exodus, we had only the minutest amount of the pure desire to receive, with which to draw down the energy of Passover. We had 49 gates of a desire to receive for oneself alone. It was just that little aspect of the pure desire to receive that we had at that moment. Oni also implies poverty, reminding us that which King David said of himself, "For I am poor and needy." This bread of affliction is called matzah, symbolizing the female principle, which, without the male element, is, so to speak, in poverty. Therefore, we know that the male aspect is the infusion of positive energy. And since on the night of Pesach we did not have any light of our own, and could not receive positive energy due to our deep involvement with the Egyptian system of the unclean powers of the left column, we are to be considered to be in poverty. We were involved with the desire to receive for oneself alone. And this is the smaller part of the matzah, which calls all this to mind, that we had no light or positive energy of our own. The larger part of the matzah, which is the afikomen, is also called safon, hidden. And at this stage, ostensibly, tradition says that the reason we hide the afikomen is so that the children present can search for it when it is required. And therefore it is called safon, hidden. But not only because of this traditional function, but rather that the Alpha Coma represents the sacrificial lamb, the epitome of the destructive power of the Egyptians. We seek to hide it from the presence of the Seder until the moment when we shall need it. In doing so, we should also remind ourselves that we are trying to contain throughout this evening the selfish desire to receive that this Alpha Coma represents. It is the desire to receive for the self alone, without any desire to impart. That is the prime cause of all of our problems in the world. So that the act of hiding should be accompanied by a meditation on the necessity of keeping this potential harmful form of energy in check within our own systems. The fifth key on our keyboard, which is called Magid. This refers to the reading of the Haggadah itself. And those who wish to strengthen and intensify all the cables that are being set up on this night will find it beneficial and instructive to read from the Rea Mehemna, the Beloved Shepherd section of Zohar 2, page 40b. Unfortunately, this particular section is not available in the English translation of the Sonsino, and will wait until the center publishes the entire Zohar. Nevertheless, for those who cannot read Hebrew, or rather I should say who cannot understand Hebrew, should at least, or even read Hebrew, should at least have the Hebrew edition of the Zohar, by which the eyes can glance over these particular words. This beautiful passage contains the Kabbalistic readings for the recitation of the Haggadah. Once again, we pronounce the word Magid to establish before everyone that this is the stage we are about to start, and to bring about within ourselves the necessary Kavanah meditation. Now, it's rather strange that the Magid, the aspect of reciting or reading of the Haggadah, we find the invitation to all those who may be needy or hungry at the time of Pesach to come and join us. What is strange is that the invitation is written in Aramaic, the lingua franca of the period in which the Haggadah was compiled, so that it should be understood by all regardless of their knowledge of Hebrew. However, this is also an invitation to ourselves. Why else should we make an offer at this stage in the proceedings when we are just about to begin the reading, having said Kiddush and washed our hands? If the prime aim of the invitation was to bring people in from the inside, it should have been made before we sat down at the Seder table. Yet, we should understand that in this night, we, ourselves, as physical and spiritual descendants of those Jews who made the exodus from Egypt, were in hunger for the nourishment of the Seder table. We yearn for the energy of Pesach that has been appointed to this time, to this night. This passage is a direct continuation of the discussion of the Lechem Oni, which, as we said, provides us with a profound insight into our spiritual state at this time. Thus we read, the Jewish people went into exile because of poverty in Lamentations. As this section is read, we raise the matzah and read this invitation. But of course it is to indicate our desire to elevate our spiritual level from that of Oni, spiritual deprivation, to one of fulfillment. Our passage in which we read, this year we are here, next year may it be in the land of Israel. Does this mean that those of us who already live in the land of Israel can omit this section? However, an understanding of the spiritual significance of these words will show us that this is not the case. Then we should understand that when it says that this year we are here, where? Does that mean referring to outside the land of Israel? But in brief, the Kabbalistic interpretation is that Israel, the word Yisrael, indicates the upper level of the triad. The lower aspect of the triad is called Yaakov, Jacob. In other words, when Jacob had established or achieved a higher level of consciousness, it then indicates the aspect of Israel, which is the code name for the upper triad. So what this important aspect of this Haggadah, which, as we said, is read in Aramaic, and again without delving upon the importance of Aramaic, which is I've already touched upon in Kabbalah for the layman, and nevertheless, the Haggadah wishes to indicate the thought intelligence of where we should be, to understand that we are in spiritual deprivation, and at the present time, hacha, which means here, now, but in the year to come, we shall be in the realm of Israel, because it is only in the realm of Israel this evening that we achieve this altered state of consciousness, which means we have completely transformed the desire to receive for oneself alone to one of imparting. By achieving this altered state of consciousness, we then can have the security and the assurance that the next 12 months will be a metaphysical DNA that will provide us with a safe and secure passage right through all of the turmoil and complexities that obviously accompany the lives of most inhabitants of planet Earth. Therefore, this, by indicating the Lehem Oni, by first recognizing the impoverishment where we are, it is only after the recognition of this state that we can then achieve a higher level of altered state of consciousness. Obviously, for those who believe that they have already arrived, and there is no need for spiritual growth, or have no insight into what the significance of Passover is all about, then why even recite this passage? This I would like to single out as the most important passage of the entire Haggadah. The most important passage of the Haggadah, and if we do not understand its significance, we have lost. If we do not know its significance, we have lost contact with the recitation of the Haggadah, and ultimately we shall then have a problem of whether we have come to the that I'm hesitating is because one should defer from injecting negative energy, and therefore I'd rather remain with a positive aspect, and simply to state that by achieving this altered state of consciousness, by understanding that we must achieve a desire to receive for the sake of sharing, we then will establish the final aspect of this particular verse, that that now we are slaves meaning to the desire to receive for oneself alone, and l'shana haba, for the rest of this year, b'nei chorin, we shall be free people. And believe me, we all will recognize at this moment that freedom means one thing: freedom of want, freedom of need, freedom of not being subjected to the next individual, not being dependent upon anyone. There is nothing that we can call freedom that does not spell out this particular framework. Freedom from the necessity of needing others, needing to be beholden, needing to be in a place of business every day, needing to come to somebody who is going to assist me in providing or fulfilling my needs. This, I can't stress often enough, is the crux of the entire Haggadah, and we must understand that because it's written in Aramaic, there was a clue as to its significance. Familiar and most famous of all family reunions, the reciting of the 4 questions. Now, for those who have been seeking the deeper implication of the Haggadah in general and its parts in particular, the moment we come to a section which deals with 4, we realize that this will be associated with the positive aspect of the Tetragrammaton. The number 4 will always deal with the Tetragrammaton, the Yud K Vav K. 4 questions deal with the 4 phases of creation in certainly a very abstruse manner, in the way the 4 questions are presented, and of course their answer is again mystifying. But in any event, let us deal now with the first question, which says that why on all other nights do we eat hametz and matzah, and this night alone we eat only matzah. Matzah, as we indicated before, and I'm going to have to be very brief if I'm to conclude the highlights of the reading of the 15 aspects of our keyboard, that this being the first question refers to the Yud, which is the Sfirat of Chachma, which is a totality of right column, the totality of the light, and therefore the question that we address, why do we eat this night only the matzah, which we already have established is the symbolization of positive energy. Now the second question, which says, why do we eat all kinds of herbs, and yet on this night of Passover we eat maror, the bitter herb, which we have already indicated as being a central column aspect, and yet here we seem to be dealing with Binah, the second stage, or the hay of the first hay of the Tetragrammaton. How do we reconcile the two? For those who have not gone through the 4 phases of the 10 luminous emanations, it would be very difficult to reconcile how we have already previously discussed the aspect of Maror, which is central column, and with all of its meaning that I have already stated previously. But for those who do understand the aspect of Binah, this was a complete. This is not necessarily left column. It is the beginning of the nature of left column, which means that there was an arousal on the part of the vessel with a desire to impart. This is essentially what Bina is all about. And so, as maror is this negation of the vessel. In other words, maror, which is to bring us to the point of almost death. Death, of course, is only referring to the body. It's like Bina. It's getting into like a mikvah where we're totally immersed in the water, and while we're still there, we are not there. In other words, we don't breathe any longer. We can't breathe below the surface of the water, and consequently, what the intent here has been to cancel out, negate the aspect of a vessel. The vessel being, of course, the desire to receive. And so, the second question here is referring to maror because it also at the same time indicated the canceling out of the vessel. Whereas in the stage of maror, when we ate the bitter herb, there was another facet to it. There was another addition to it. It was central column. The reason that we established it as central column, which I have already stated, and I don't want to repeat it, but nevertheless, within the aspect of maror, we do have the aspect of bina. And I'm hopeful that for those of you who have not grasped the full implication of this aspect, at least concentrate that we are connecting with the hay of the tetragrammaton, which is the first hay, which is bina, and this should be sufficient for the establishment of this aspect of the Haggadah. We then come to the third question, which obviously is dealing with the vav of the tetragrammaton, and there he says we do not dip in even one time, and here we dip twice. Again, the result of entering the mikveh, the bina, was a desire to want to cancel out the vessel. The vav in the four phases in 10 luminous emanations was the result of this desire to cancel. The result was dipping oneself, being immersed in water, being part of the aspect of the right column, because the yud, which is hachma, which was the first question, which was matzah, meaning a canceling out of the desire to receive, because again that's what matzah is all about. It is not permitting the desire to receive the wheat to rise in its natural consequence. The vav is not so much an aspect of the force of sharing, but rather it is another aspect of sharing, but not an active sharing, but rather a passive kind of sharing. In other words, if I don't receive, that which I could have received is left for everyone else to participate or to partake. So the fact that I reject, and I'm within the water, so to speak, my vessel is not in a position to accept, because once you're immersed in that water, you're not even breathing. So you've left kind of some of the air for others to breathe with. So therefore, the aspect of dipping here is to indicate that we are connecting with the third phase, the vav of the tetragrammaton. And come to the fourth stage, which is the malhut, the final hay, and there we say all All other nights we eat both in a sitting and reclining position, but this evening we must, as we drink our each of the 4 cups of wine, we must drink the wine in a reclining position, in fact, leaning over towards the left. And this is the question. Malchut, which is the desire to receive in its full bloom, on this night, the question was why? Why? But there again is our answer, because when one is in a freedom framework, it runs far beyond the fact that we are not physical slaves. But as we discussed previously, again, for most of us, we find ourselves locked into positions. We're always in that aspect of need, want, in one form or another. And on this night, that Malchut, which represents the desire to receive, which is the intrinsic reason for being slaves, the needs, the wants that almost coerce us into this kind of bondage. On this night, they were free. And in addition to the reason of Passover that we discussed previously, the Ari, in his Gates of Meditation, says that the word Pesach comes from 2 words, Pesach, the mouth speaks, and that in Egypt, as we find in many countries today, one is forbidden to talk, free speech. What's on your mind? Express yourself. The Zohar in Parshat Ve'era, the 2nd Parsha, says that Gam hadibur haya begalut. Speaking was also in exile because they could not express themselves freely, like some say in Russia. There is no freedom of speech. For those who have never experienced being slaves or being prohibited from expressing oneself as one feels, one cannot appreciate this kind of freedom. This is what Pesach is all about from another point of view, and that is, as the Ari and the Zohar state, that while we may not live in a country of a dictatorship where freedom of speech is prohibited, nevertheless, even in a free society, at times we feel compelled not to speak the truth because it may affect us adversely, whether it be in business, in friendship, etc. The one who can truly express and state what he believes to be true is one who is free. Pesach. It is only one who is really going to communicate and connect with that awesome power can feel the freedom of speech. And throughout the next 12 months, will never have to look at himself in the mirror and say, well, look, why didn't you tell what you thought? Why didn't you tell your friend what you thought? Well, you didn't know how he would accept it. And then there would have been an adverse reaction or whatever. One who connects can be part of that freedom process, even freedom from speech. Freedom from the bondage of speech. The Zohar, in fact, compares this to a fetus in the womb of his mother, that was the way the Jews were in Egypt. And when they went out, it's like the child who comes out of his mother's womb and he begins to yell, talk, to cry, and he actually now has been released from this confinement. He speaks. This was the Nes of Pesach. To be able to speak. And this is the importance. Another reason for the Haggadah, for talking. And that's why Haggadah actually does not mean Seder. I did not discuss this. I could have raised this question. I guess I should have. It is called the Haggadah Shel Pesach. The speaking of Pesach. It's not the Seder. That's why we say the Seder, the structure of the 15 stages. That itself speaks of structure. But it is called the Haggadah from the word to speak. When you have freedom of speech, when you feel that you have no limitation to what you can or cannot say, you're a free man. Eliezer, Rabbi Yehoshua, etc. Again, to indicate on a very superficial level the importance of the aspect of Magid, of reciting and discussing the Haggadah, to the point where they discussed it all evening until their students came and told them that it was time for the Sharit. And now the morning prayer. Obviously, there's a deeper significance and meaning to this passage, but suffice to say that this and the next paragraph or two are stressing the importance of speaking. All right, and then we come to the 4 sons. The wise man, the evil one, the simple one, and the one who does not know what to ask. Again, if we are discussing the 4 sons, the 4 children, the deeper significance of this passage, again, is to establish the Tetragrammaton, making and strengthening and expanding the aspect of the Tetragrammaton, because the way the sages have set up this Haggadah, this was essential and vital to the establishment of the software by which we were going to tap, which we will tap, this enormous energy that profusely appeared for the Jew at the time of the Exodus to permit this freedom in every form, freedom in every manner that freedom can be established. So let us take the aspect of the Chacham, the wise man. What does he say? What are all these laws about? In other words, this is quite similar to the question that the Ger, the convert, when he came to Hillel, said, "Look, I've just converted, and I understand the importance and significance of the Torah, but I'm being very brief, but what he was asking Hillel was, okay, is this just a question of dogma, or is it just a question of kach katuv, so it is written, and for one to be an observant Jew, one must conform to all the laws and principles of the Torah, and is that the objective, or is there possibly something more significant to the performance of the precepts of the Torah?" This is essentially the question of the wise son. Again, as Yud, meaning within the Yud of the Tetragrammaton, like comparing it to the seed, as the analogy of the seed, by which within the seed you have every subsequent physical manifestation. So here too, the first question addresses itself to the seed, like, okay, give me the general rule. We'll then get into the subsequent stages of development and manifestation. But what is the essential aspect of all of this? Why do we need all this? Where is it supposed to bring me to? Is the path the end? Is the path the purpose? Or is the path the means? That is essentially the question of Chacham, which again is an aspect of Chachma, the first phase or the Yud of the Tetragrammaton. And what is the answer of the Haggadah, strange as it is, that Ein maftirin achar ha-Pesach afikoman. Ein maftirin. Superficially, it means one does not eat, one does not drink, one does not continue on a physical level in connecting with physical food once the afikomen has been eaten. This is truly on a very superficial level. What is the deeper significance, and why is it that important not to eat after the afikomen? That's simple. Since we now understand the significance of the afikomen, which is the establishment of the vav, which is central column, which is teferet within the confines of this matzah, how do you connect to the seed, to the root? How do you connect to the framework of an awesome power? It is like the bulb, through the act of restriction. Once you have established a framework in your life as one which operates within an infrastructure of an inbuilt aspect of the desire to restrict. In other words, every need that you seem to be addressing, every need that inevitably comes before you, the wants that are part and parcel of normal everyday existence, if you have come to the understanding that every need will be addressed with a thought energy intelligence of a desire to restrict, you have then connected to the force called Chachma. We now come to the second question. Again, we're treating the Haggadah with a deeper meaning and a deeper significance as to the implication of what is being stated and said in the Haggadah. Now it says that Rasha, which is the second phase, what does he say? Now, the commentaries on the Haggadah say, why could we really believe that the Haggadah is speaking about evil people? But since we're talking about phase 2 of the Tetragrammaton, and that is Bina. Now, we've already explained that Bina indicates the aspect of the vessel. In other words, there seems to be some separation, and this was necessary. There are those who are completely involved with the light, are part of the light, and do not express themselves. Whereas in Bina, it was the vessel that was separating herself for a worthwhile purpose, separating herself, making herself known. And so when the Rasha, meaning not an evil person, because the Haggadah has enough to be talking about rather than just bringing up what a Rasha has to say. But it is like we address ourselves sometimes to those who begin raising questions. And even for some of us here at the center, we've been raising a lot of questions, and foremost of which is, well, look now, for 2,000 years, we've been doing this thing, and things certainly aren't any better than they've been. And so what is this really all about? In fact, these people have been referred to as kafar bi'ikar. I mean, how dare he raise such questions? Doesn't he have faith in Hashem? But from a Kabbalistic point of view, we treat Hashem, we treat the Lord as one who shares beneficence, not pain and suffering. And so the reason he is referred to as Rasha, meaning he has taken himself out of the general rule of things, of the general opinion of how one should view things that happen around us. So in this particular case, as Bina was an expression of the vessel, meaning it's separated to an extent itself from the light, from the all-pervading opinion, all-pervading force that was in existence, so too are we treating this second stage of the grammaton. And furthermore, because what is the answer of the Haggadah? And thou shalt hakei et shinav. And there is a corruption here, which says, and knock out his teeth, and you tell him that how dare he exclaim and declare his reluctance to be part of the all-pervading definition of what's really going on. But the word hakei is not beat from the word hakei, which would be with a kaf rather than a kuf. And here it says hakei, which means to sharpen his teeth. Try to give him an answer and say that this is the reason. Avuzeh as Hashem li b'tzeitim mimisayim. Do you know why we went out? Because we were not independent. We considered ourselves part of the all-embracing whole. In other words, it's true. When you raise that question, the question should be raised, and people should ask questions. But also understand that when you raise questions, and there are different interpretations to the same thing, understand that everything is part of the whole. In other words, there is no fragmentation. That is what it meant. It means that Hashem did this to me when he took us out. Li v'lo lo. In other words, I understood that I am not the answer, the totality. I am merely an aspect. Everyone is part of an aspect. And one who considers himself as the totality, no matter where he's coming from, if he considers himself to be the totality, he would never have been redeemed, because redemption dealt with the all-embracing unified force. The Jew in Egypt, as the Zohar says, had reached and attained the 49th degree, and yet he was taken out for only one reason. He was prepared to accept the principle that different aspects of the same thing are part of the all-embracing unified whole. This is, in fact, the way the Zohar explains the conflict between the house of Shammai and the house of Hillel. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. Both were correct. They both had opposite opinions, and yet both are correct. Because, as explains the Zohar, each one came from another space. The house of Shammai were more inclined to the left column, the aspect of judgment, of viewing things with a more harsh point of view, whereas the house of Hillel saw things more in a compassionate way. But this is where each one came from. So the fact that one is more compassionate than another doesn't mean that therefore I'm the righteous and the other fellow is a rasha. No. When the second phase here says, what is this all about? Sharpen his teeth, explain things to him, because Binah represents another aspect, the vessel. It is not the all-pervading light. And then, again, nobody can say to himself, or dare say to himself, I know what's right. This is what the Torah says. There are many points of view to the Torah. If they're both coming from a pure space, the fact that they contradict each other, this is the manifestation of the all-embracing unified whole, the Lord. There can be two opposite aspects, seemingly opposite aspects of the one embracing whole. This is what the Agadah is referring to. Now we come to phase 3, the Tam. Now, some refer to the Tam, which again is a corruption within the Haggadah in this translation, meaning a simpleton, because it conflicts with the fourth son who doesn't know what to ask. Well, isn't that a simpleton? No, but there is a clue, and this is what we learn in Kabbalah. The moment you spot a word, you know that the word will never have a change in its meaning. The word is in Hebrew tam. Now tam comes from the word complete. It says Yaakov, Jacob, the patriarch, was a tam. He was complete. And of course, since this refers to the vav of the tetragram, and this is the thought, energy, intelligence that we will inject in when we recite this particular line, this particular concept. This is the way we're establishing connections. Whether we understand the full implication, because again, on every aspect that I'm touching upon, we probably can stay and discuss this for at least another year, but we've got to get through it and make our connections. So at least we've established, to whatever degree, the connection from a deeper, interpenetrating point of view, meaning we want to touch that force. And there's only one way we can touch that force, and that's with knowledge, knowing. So the tam is the complete one, the vav. Central column. And it says, what is all this about? And what is the answer? Hashem, the Lord, took us out of Egypt. He took us out of the house of the slave. Now, like, if this Tom, this simpleton, was sitting there, I mean, he's heard enough the repetition of, well, Hashem took us out of Egypt, from the house of bondage. What is the significance here? What is being added? The answer is that because of the Vav, which is what we've been stressing time and again throughout this evening, and that is that by connecting to the aspect of restriction, that was the aspect of the 3 doorposts. This is the action. This is the minor action, the only action, in fact, that with the participation of this action of the three-column system of restriction, the acceptance of the three-column system, the knowledge of the three-column system was sufficient to bring about this glorious redemption. This is what Tom is all about, the central column. And therefore, we now come to the fourth phase, which is She'eino Yodea L'Shol. He doesn't know what to ask. Well, look, everybody's been asking. All he has to do is maybe just even repeat what everybody has been asking up until this point. What does the writer of the Haggadah wish to imply with this aspect? But again, we're dealing now with Malchut, the fourth phase of the Tetragrammaton, and we're injecting the letter Hey, the second Hey of the Tetragrammaton, and the idea here is, when he says She'eino Yodea L'Shol, he doesn't know Yodea. Now, we've already gone through that. He doesn't know how to make these connections. He says, look, how can I even think of making a connection? Look where I've been. I've been down in a rut. I've been down in the smut of everything. And now here I come this evening, me, this lowlife of an individual. I've been bad maybe all year, and all of a sudden now I'm coming to this family reunion. Here I am, boy. I'm just going to make my connections. Is that possible? How can I? But that's what it says. If you think you can make connections, She'eino Yodea L'Shol, you don't know how to ask, you're not sure about your connections, the answer is, if you reach the level of where you're now prepared to make the connection, you feel that everything around you doesn't seem to be working for you. You feel even in religion, for 2,000 years, things just don't work out. The answer is, open up your mouth. Open up his mouth. Tell him, as every generation after generation should be explaining to their children, that we too, at that point in time, at the Exodus, we had reached the 49th gate of impurity. How did they expect this great miracle to fall upon them, redeem them, take them out of the gutter, take them out at the lowest position that the Jew had ever reached? But yet, the fact that they were prepared to make the connection, in spite of the fact that maybe their connection was not at a level of where a righteous person might be, but those people then were not righteous, and maybe most of us today are not righteous, if we can only at least recognize the fact, She'eino Yodea L'Shol. We don't know how can we make these connections. Who are we to make these connections? Don't come down on yourself. Remember the Jew. Remember where he was. And no matter where you are, if you've come to that point in your life, if you've come to a stage where you say, look, I've got to make a change. We're not talking about making a change on a physical level, but you truthfully, sincerely wish to achieve an altered state of consciousness, do not despair. At Malchut, we know where we are. We're in Malchut. We're in that desire to receive. We're no different, and maybe a little better, than the Jew was when he was in Egypt. And there was almost no reason for the Lord to redeem him And yet he was redeemed. That's the answer that the Bala Gada says. He did all this for me, in spite of the fact that I wasn't ready. I didn't feel ready. But the beautiful thing happened. Therefore it says, Vihigadata. Again, this is the same word as the Haggadah of Passover. Haggadah, tell your son that no matter where you might find yourself, don't come down on yourself and say, who am I? How can I make these connections? I can't even open up my mouth. No, open up your mouth. Remember, make that one connection. And that's all that's required. And that's to say, no matter where I was, no matter how low I've sunk, you're no less and no better than maybe the Jew that came out of bondage. But what did he do? He opened up his mouth. He says, I'm prepared. I'm ready now to make that step into an altered state of consciousness. I'd like to change. I know where I've been. But can I begin now? And there is no one to say, but, hey, wait. Who are you? Do you know where you've been? You're now coming forward and demanding? Yes, even demanding that you're entitled? The answer is yes, only for the reason that when the Jew, my forefathers, were in Egypt, they were certainly not deserving of the great miracles that befell them. And therefore, I'm going to open up my mouth too. I'm not deserving, but I feel at this point, I do want to alter my state of consciousness. Can I begin? And by my desire to begin, can I connect? Can I connect with this awesome power that seems to be so pervading throughout the universe on this night? And the answer is yes. Remember, there were those who had sunk to lower depths than at any other time in history. And the Lord, through that miracle, pulled them up with bootstraps from the bottom to a level of almost Ein Sof. You can do that tonight as well. But remember, as the Jew then went through the 7 weeks of purification and cleansing, that will be incumbent upon you too. But you can make it, irrespective of the fact that maybe you can't even read Hebrew. But if you can be in this frame of mind this evening, you are assured of making the connection to that light and thereby assuring yourself of 12 months of freedom from bondage. Point on, you're going to be reciting several portions of the Haggadah, and if you can't read it in Hebrew, at least first look at the words in Hebrew, even though you can't read them. Make a connection like one would make a connection with a copier. The machine copies. In other words, it scans. It's like almost like a computer scanning what there is and absorbing. In spite of the fact that the computer does not read, and nor does the copier read, but it has this inbuilt structure. So is it with the eye. You can at least read and capture the words. So, therefore, the next part of this Haggadah, for those who cannot read Hebrew, or for those who do not understand, can read Hebrew but do not understand the words that is being recited. Or for those that are looking for a deeper meaning, a deeper significance, do not become frustrated. It's like your telephone system having so many wires and so many connections, or even like your computer having so many connections that that they're vital. They're vital to making the overall connection, and therefore the sages of the Haggadah have included a great deal of that which follows, which I'm not going to explain because these particular passages are there for establishing the wires, establishing those parts that are necessary in creating the overall system for what we're trying to establish over here. So, in one way or another, try to make your connections, and don't worry, you're making them. So you keep going, and we're now going to come to an aspect which is called after the reciting of the 10 plagues, and you've got to say those words. Now, if you can't say them in the Hebrew, at least again, where you come to the 10 plagues, it's important, because by reciting these 10 plagues, what we're in essence doing is trying to cancel our bondage which consists of the 10 thought, energy, intelligences of the Klipot. That's what causes fragmentation. That what causes time, space, and motion. That which causes an aspect of past, present, and future. We're trying to get into the aspect of back to the future, where there is no future and past as separate entities, as fragmented parts in linear time. So, when you come to the recitation of the 10 plagues, scan the Hebrew, and then recite the English. We now come to the paragraph where Rabbi Yehuda would give his coded message, which is Ditzach Adash Be'achav. The reason I've said it so slowly is that for those of you who do not read Hebrew but are listening to this tape, to again write the transliteration, and you have this coded message in front of you, because one, it encompasses the 10 plagues in seed form. You have 10 letters. Again, Ditzach Adash Be'achav. According to the Ari, in his Megillat Sitarim, this coded message provides us in these three groupings with the power by which the Lord brought refuah, brought the supreme healing powers that ultimately will appear at the time of the age of Aquarius. And for those of you not familiar with the famous declaration of the Ari, when he states and raises the question, if a person loses an arm and there is no rebirth of that arm, he questions why, when we cut nails or cut hair, we see a regeneration of the nails and the hair, indicating that in the original DNA, the power source that brings about the totality of a physical structure, a physical body of man, by an accident, heaven forbid, and a severance of that arm, the original DNA is still there. It is like pruning a tree. The tree grows back. Why doesn't the arm grow back? And the Yadi answers that in the time of the age of Aquarius, when the knowledge of regrowth, rejuvenation, regeneration shall be known by the 72 letters, this phenomena will be a very normal occurrence. And therefore, in his Megillat Sitarim, in his book called Megillat Sitarim, the revelation of the mysteries, the Ari says, these three groupings of these particular letters was the energy, thought, intelligence by which the Jews were healed when he redeemed them from bondage. We then continue on with the reading of the Haggadah. Again, for those who cannot read Hebrew, scan the Hebrew words until we come to the section where Rabbi Gamliel used to say these three words. One must recite these three words: Pesach, Matzah, Umaror. In other words, these are the principal aspects of our software which embody the 15 stages. So again, by reciting these three Hebrew words, whether you understand or whether you can read Hebrew, it is vital that you utter and make the connection with these three Hebrew words: Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Therefore, we create the link between the software and the hardware. And we then continue and touch upon the Hallel. Now, Hallel, which literally means praise, but for those versed in the 72 letters of the mysteries of the universe, Hallel is one of those 72 combination of three letters. Hallel. We are meditating on the Hey, Lamed, Lamed. By meditating, we then make the connection through this invaluable word, Hallel, which makes for us the connection to the cosmic event of any particular cosmic infusion of cosmic intelligence. We recite Hallel on every holiday, including the new moon. The reason for reciting the Hallel is to make the connection between the prayers, which are the software, and the hardware, meaning the energy, the cosmic energy, intelligence that is flowing on that particular day. And therefore we are reciting Hallel as well to connect to the overall cosmic intelligence of Pesach, Passover. We then continue on And now we will come to the partaking and establishing of the drinking of the second cup of wine. Again, second cup of wine would be the meditative hay, the first hay of the Tetragrammaton. When we drink, after saying the blessing, when we drink the wine, we move over to the left side, indicating this freedom action, and also at the same time establishing the second phase of the Tetragrammaton. Completing that, we then come to the next phase, which is called Rach-Tza. We exclaim it out loud. Rach-Tza, which means another key on our keyboard computer, and we make the blessing V'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. We now come to stage 6, or key number 6 and 7 of our keyboard, in which we recite 2 blessings. One is called the Motzi, and by which we say Hamotzi lehem min haaretz, and key 7, number 7, which is Matzah, in which we recite V'tzivanu al achilat matzah. We take the upper matzah, which is the Yud. We take the lehem oni. We hold these 2 matzot together, and recite these 2 matzot, blessings. We dip it into salt. Again, the aspect of salt discussed previously, the fact of positive thought intelligence. And we break the top matzah, eat part of the top, together with the broken, smaller part of the middle matzah. We have, in event, created a joining of the Yud, which is symbolized by the upper matzah, the Kohen, and Dal, the impoverished aspect. We are infusing the force of the Lord, the Yud, into this matzah, the impoverished lechem oni matzah, and by eating both together, we have infused the lechem oni with the positive energy intelligence of the Lord. We now come to stage 9, which is the maror, which has already been discussed. And here we will take a kizayit, which is at least the size of an olive. We will dip this into the charoset, that mixture, and we will make the following blessing. V'tzivanu. This is, of course, the brief version, because it generally begins with the Baruch, and we conclude with the V'tzivanu al achilat maror. Again, meditating on the aspect of central column, establishing and setting in motion the software that we described in our interpretation of the 7 sfirot of the Ke'ara, of the Seder plate. We then come now to number 10 on our keyboard, called Korech. We take the 3rd lower matzah, referred to as Yisrael, and recite Zecher Lemikdash Kehillel. This is the way Hillel did his thing at the time of the Holy Temple. The reason that we have taken the Korech, which represents the three-column system, in which we were told by the Gemara when the convert approached Hillel and asked him, what is this all about? And his answer was, the entire Torah is merely a cosmic code, so as to come to the ultimate objective, which is, thou shalt not do unto your neighbor that which is odious unto you, or love thy neighbor as thou would thyself. This is the crux of the evening, the aspect of restriction, because without restriction, then we do not permit another individual his existence. We wish to gobble up everything if we succumb to the desire to receive for oneself alone. This would be the meditation as we partake of the lower third matzah. And we again declare, by declaring, we punch that key, which is number 10 on the keyboard, Korech, and therefore we have inserted into our software stage number 10. And then we come to, I guess, what most happy reunions of Passover is all about, and that is eating the food. Isn't that what we all got together for in the first place? I mean, we had to go through all this to come to eating. This is called Shulchan Orech. And this is very vital because there are several ways by which we can eat. If we can understand that within that food there is a metaphysical thought, energy, intelligence in which we want to communicate and connect with, then in this keyboard we are bringing the levels of the physical reality, joining and combining them to the metaphysical reality. This must be the thought meditation that will go into the actual process of eating. And now we come to stage 12. We must declare the word Safun. Safun, which means concealed, which means coated, and unfortunately for most people who would like to connect with the evening but have lost the significance and importance of what this Seder was all about and just became involved with the festivities and lost this beautiful and priceless tapping of the awesome power of the Lord on this particular evening, is concluded and is referred to as the eating of the afikomen, Safun. I've already explained the meditation that goes into this part of the matzah, which symbolizes the vav, which symbolizes the aspect of restriction. And therefore, it is important that at this point in time, we are going to resolve that we will make every effort in our connection with the afikomen, the software, to connect with the hardware of this evening, because of our resolution that we will make every effort to express and make manifest the thought, energy, intelligence of restriction. And now we come to stage number 13 of our keyboard, referred to as Barech, the grace after meal. The purpose of the grace after meal is to make manifest the thought, energy, intelligence of the food. As we know that in food there are two aspects: the physical, which of course we all know where that winds up, and of course that which is eternal, the internal thought, energy, intelligence of food, by which we have connected through blessings, meditation, etc. The purpose of the grace after meals is now to make manifest. It's like the seed. We've connected with the seed, but nevertheless it has not become manifest, and grace after meals provides us with the word connection, which now physically, on our level, when I say physically, again, we're discussing something of a metaphysical nature, but which will make manifest in the physical reality, which will serve our purpose and our interest to provide us with this insurance of this sought-after energy that is so vital in establishing the metaphysical DNA that I have already described before, meaning that as I proceed down the road of life in the next 12 months, on the highway, walking down that street, there will be a shield of security constantly surrounding me. Following the grace after meal, we then have the drinking of the third cup, which should be meditated as the Vav of the Tetragrammaton. And then, of course, we fill the cup of Elijah and say, Shefo Hamatka El Goyim, scan it. And of course, we should understand that it does not mean Goyim in a sense, the non-Jew or those anti-Semites that are out to constantly hurt us. No, we're talking about that evil part within ourselves. That part that doesn't want to make connections, doesn't want lo yudo ucha, doesn't want to recognize the all-embracing reality. And then we will conclude and successfully with the Hallel, which is the 14th stage, as I described before, and then finally declare Nirtzah. We have been successful. It is Mirutzah. The connections have been made, and good luck to you in your new adventure down the road of freedom. Thank you.